All right, here we go. We have Lil Britney in the building today on TLOY. How are you doing today, man?
Up, bro? I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Interesting story by the way too. As we talked before, like before the interview started on your soft white underbelly interview that everyone like knew about, like in that sense too. Discussing where you started off at, your addiction, everything else like going on like in your life too, moving to LA, like in that sense too, and you even like backed it up with like the music in that sense too, and the creative art that you have like right now, and interesting discography like by the way too, like I know that you mainly like release on YouTube, and it's like very interesting too because more people tend to prefer using like YouTube than like any other platform. So like with the songs like listed, the pills have eyes, free, Mr. Rogers, pretty little rave girl, also like the pills have eyes series like with 2 and 1, and then the world is yours, and then Darby Crash,
Yep.
like very interesting like with the sounds and styles too, like pretty much like a mix of like hyper pop, emo, a bit of like rap here and there too, so it kind of has like an interesting like blend in that sense.
Yeah, thank you. I listen to a lot of different genres of music. I don't really stick to just like rap or whatever. So I try to kind of genre blend as much as I can.
Yeah, no, definitely, I truly understand too. And this is like, like with this interview too, like we're diving more into the music stuff rather than like what was talked about like on software underbelly,
Yeah,
but
of course.
like, but in that sense too, I want to start it off, like, growing up. So you grew up in Vermont and North Carolina, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And what was like the environment like for you growing up in like both states? Like, did you notice like a difference in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. Growing up in North Carolina was honestly pretty lame, bro. Like, I don't want to generalize like the whole state of North Carolina, but at least the city that I grew up in there was mostly like right wing kind of redneck homophobe types, and that was also like the type of kids who were in my school and shit like that. So I was like very different from them. Obviously I wasn't a redneck, so I just, I wasn't like southern like them. I don't know, I was just different and I stood out, I guess. And yeah, I just didn't really fit in, and the kids in my schools like threw around fucking gay slurs and shit at me a lot. And when I was 12, I think I was 12, I finally moved up to Vermont to live with my dad. And Vermont is, I will say, it's a lot cooler than North Carolina. I like it a lot more than North Carolina because there's a lot more like similar people here to me, like a lot more like-minded people, I suppose. And Vermont's politics are kind of a lot more in line with my own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not exactly happy in Vermont. It's very boring here, and there's not a shitload of um, opportunity for someone who wants to pursue music or art or anything. And I see a lot of people I know get like stuck here, like they want to leave, but they just like never do. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm really trying to move to LA permanently, like ASAP.
Yeah, no doubt. And now, I mean, with Vermont, it's pretty interesting too because I think the only two like recognized like people there are like Bernie Sanders, and then Nothing Nowhere. Like if you're
Yeah, I
like
was just gonna
in
say
big like
nothing nowhere.
yeah, yeah. So like just like with those two versus like what like the other people like within like North Carolina, because I know North Carolina, they'll have like more Republican type
Yeah.
figures, and like also like people like in the music scene like the Baby and Stunna for Vegas or J. Cole and all that. So you
Yep.
kind of like notice like the culture shocks, in that sense too, like from the inner cities to the small towns to like other areas as well.
Yeah, exactly. Going to LA was especially a culture shock, bro. Because I grew up in like small towns in North Carolina and Vermont and shit. And going to LA was fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. Nah, no doubt. And when you started off with music and like art, how did you like get into it in that sense?
Um, I mean, I've been into like music and art pretty much as long as I can remember. I was always like drawing little pictures and shit when I was like a pretty much as long as I can remember. And when I was like 4 or so, I would like memorize the lyrics to Beastie Boys songs and shit that my mom would listen to. So I've definitely always had like an affinity for music and just creative expression in general, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess like at that certain point too that you wanted to make it like a profession, like what inspired you to take it more seriously in that sense?
To be honest, I could never really picture myself just working a job and making somebody else's dreams come true for like minimum wage or next to minimum wage and just like maintaining forever. I don't know. I feel really I feel just a strong drive to be creative and artistic, and I just really want to do something with that and be able to support myself with my art. And I guess the decision to pursue music more so than like a fucking full-time job or whatever is just boils down to like me being happy and feeling fulfilled as a person and like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, nah, no doubt. And I know like that you said too that you were first exposed to music like when your mom like was like playing like a lot of like BC Boys and like all that other type of
Mhm.
stuff too. As far as like like creating a piece in that sense too, like what was like the like first art piece or like the song that you've ever like made in your life in that sense?
I couldn't really pinpoint the first like piece of art because like I said, I've been drawing and shit for as long as I can remember. But my first like actual musical endeavor was a ska punk band called Mars Attacks I was in when I was like I think I was 14. I played drums. Um it was very like it was a very cliche like punk band full of 14-year-olds with very like forced lyrics about like how the government sucks and how weed is awesome and shit like that. It's kind of cringy to look back on, but I guess everybody starts somewhere. But yeah, so Mars Attacks was my first band. When I moved to Vermont, there was a like an actual music scene here, like a punk scene. So I got into that, and then after Mars Attacks, I just played in various different bands, different punk bands or grindcore bands, like singing or playing drums mainly. And then kind of got sick of being on the same page with 5 people in a band and started doing solo shit. But yeah, to answer your question, my first actual song I remember making was a song called "Willingly Ignorant" by Mars Attacks.
True. And it's interesting too, like the name like kind of has like, a unique style to it. So like what was like the inspiration on that like stage name, like Mars Attack in that sense?
Oh, it's my favorite movie. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have the tattoo of it on my arm.
Oh, true.
It's a Tim Burton movie from the '90s. I just like loved it when I was a little ass kid, so I've just feel nostalgic towards that movie.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
thought it was a fitting name for a ska punk band, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's interesting too because I know like some bands, like the stage names were after like movies or like certain like styles from like a book and all that, from certain names. I know I think even what I'm just trying to like figure out right now because I know there's like some like even like rap groups too that named like their bands or like stage names like out of like actual like kung fu movies or
Mhm.
out of like
Like Wu Tang and shit like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also like, like with movie stuff, like, like with Brockhampton and all that type of stuff too. So like Mars Attack, it's a unique like style to it. So yeah,
Thank you, bro.
yeah, man. And
Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. So in terms of, what you were like influenced by, like which artists or genres or figures were you mainly like influenced by in all aspects? And in the future, who would you like to like work with someday, whether it's like in art or whether it's in like music, you know?
Um, I guess I would, for people I would like to work with, I really want to do something with Nosgoth for one. I'm very into their music. Um, my best friend Willow, who I do a lot of songs with, got me into them because they have kind of like a similar style and sound. And he's done a couple songs with them, and I'm really jealous of that. But I really want to do something with Nosgoth. Who else? I guess Capo XXO would be sick. That'd be a sick feature. What was the other part of your question?
So I think it was just like the artists or genres where you like mainly like influenced
Oh,
by
okay.
like, yeah.
For sure. I definitely mostly am influenced by the punk scene. I grew up listening to punk pretty much. That's what my mom was always into. So like Minor Threat or like Crass, or even just like more basic shit like the Ramones or whatever. My mom was into that type of shit growing up. So I was kind of, that shaped my taste in music for sure. And then when I moved to Vermont, there was a big local punk scene here, like a thriving local punk scene actually. And that was like perfect for me because that's like pretty much what I was looking for. And so I played like a lot of shows in Vermont growing up. Um like local punk shows and basement shows and shit. So I'd say definitely that scene has like shaped my tastes in music more than any other genre. But I listen to almost anything. Like I like um obviously like hip hop and trap and hyper pop and shit like that, but even like fucking 80s ballads and or like dance music or fucking, I don't know. I have pretty wide taste. I even like bluegrass because I grew up in North Carolina.
Yeah, nah, no doubt. And like I know with punk right now, it's becoming like a big phase. Like right now, like it might make like a certain comeback. With other
For
styles
sure.
of like music being like influenced by like I know like in like SoundCloud rap, I know that there's like a punk like SoundCloud type vibe with artists like Scar Lord and like NASCAR Aloe, who's also
Yeah,
from
for
like
sure.
North Carolina as well too, and then
Is he? I
also
didn't know that. That's kind of lit.
yeah, I think he was born in North Carolina. His dad, I think, is like Vietnamese, and I think his mom is like
Is Latino,
German.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I know like I think like those are like the only two right now. But then you had like other people that kind of like want to bring that whole like pop punk type sound, like Swake with the Child, Machine Gun Kelly, and like even other like punk bands that are like in the mainstream, like Greta Von Fleet, and then Boston Manor, and then Joyce Manor as well too. So do you feel like punk right now is like making a big comeback, like better than ever in that sense?
Yeah, I do. And I've always, even before this kind of little revival that's happening right now, the whole like the SoundCloud and underground rap scene that sprouted up since like 2015 or 16 or so it's always reminded me of punk because the artists are just like, you can be weird as fuck and your your talent doesn't necessarily equate to the quality of your music. Like you don't have to be like a fucking amazing musician to make a really lit song, you know what I mean? And it's kind of the same with punk rock. Like that's why it's perfect for like 14-year-old kids who are just learning to play instruments or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm not too big on the MGK side.
yeah,
um I don't mind like emo and pop punk at all. I'm more into the more like raw, like provocative kind of angry punk, I guess.
yeah. Nah, I mean, I definitely agree too. I think like with the more angrier sound and like more of like, you know, the whole like the Ramones, the whole I think Sid Vicious type like style. I know like NASCAR Elo does like a Sid Vicious type style at his
Yeah, I was
shows.
just gonna say
Yeah, yeah.
he reminds me of Sid Vicious really hard.
Yeah. So I do feel like that kind of style, like, I think that's kind of like more authentic than like anything else too, because I think when you see like a lot of artists that emulate that type of style too, like it's very like unique in that sense, either way too. And then, like also like, with the Vermont thing, would you ever want to do like a song of like Nothing Nowhere? Like, like him being like the biggest like
Oh fuck
artist
yeah,
like out there.
that would be lit. I just I never pictured myself being on that level to where I could collaborate with him. But I mean, that would be fucking awesome if I could one day.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, like I could imagine that too. Like I know like with him, he did like a lot of stuff like with VT, like even like in that small amount too. Like I know that, with him growing his like fan base like out like well, like on SoundCloud, and then, doing songs with like Fall Out Boy, and with like a whole lot of other stuff too. Like I'd have to like find out like later on. I just know like the Fall Out Boy types song. I do feel
Mhm.
like, like he's gonna be like the next, biggest thing like out of like that whole like new like punk like wave in that sense to that new emo wave too. So
Yeah, for sure. I'm really fucking with the just the underground scene in general lately.
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely
I
know what
really
you
like
mean.
the like emo and punk revival and shit that's been happening recently. I'm really fucking with it.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, no doubt. And getting back to you like right now, I wanted to like figure out like, your stage name, like Lil Britney. How did you manage to get that name as like a part of your stage name by any chance?
It's not that exciting or interesting of an answer, I suppose. It's basically a mashup of two artists who I'm influenced by, which the first one is Britney Spears, obviously. The second one would be Alien Sex Fiend, which is a band from the 90s, or no, not the 90s, the 80s. My full stage name is Britney Sex Fiend. I just shorten it to Lil Britney usually. Um, but yeah, so pretty much it's just a reference to Britney Spears and Alien Sex Fiend.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like people kind of have like a little side eye, like when you say your rap name, like or like your stage name is like Lil Britney, like in that sense too, and like people like would question like your gender or your like
No,
sexuality and
yeah,
all
that
that.
was a big thing in that last interview I did. There was hella people who thought I was like trans or something because I have like my nails were painted and I have long hair and it was under Britney and shit. That doesn't bother me though.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know. They can think whatever they want.
yeah,
For the record, I'm not trans. I'm male, but not that even. Not, it wouldn't even matter if I was trans.
yeah. I think
But yeah,
you are.
I can see where it is a little bit where it could be confusing or you know.
Yeah, yeah. I know like you already like affirmed it like in the comment section like on the video too. So do feel like people like already like got the message like in that sense. So yeah.
No, people are still commenting a bunch of anti-trans shit on there, and I'm not even trans, which is like they're kind of just outing themselves as transphobes for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's crazy like in that sense too. I do feel like, people would have to like kind of like understand and change their mindset in that sense too. But I think right now some people still want to be ignorant, and they want to like live in this like world until like, you know, it all like falls down, but it's not gonna. So either way.
Yeah, that comment section is crazy. It's like it's either like extreme positive support or just like extreme fucking like hatred. It's funny.
Yeah, nah, no doubt. I want to get into your creative process, like when you were like making, music and art. So what is like your creative like process, like in that sense?
I don't have much of a set in stone creative process, I guess. Um, I guess I mainly write about my like negative emotions and shit because they feel the most like urgent at the time. And as a lot of people know from the other interview, I struggle with drug addiction, so that It's just if I get in a shitty mood and I'm kind of feeling guilt about my addiction or just feeling depressed or anxious in general, then I can try to put, if I feel like I can put it into words, I'll try to put it into lyrics. And if I feel like it won't translate very well to English or whatever, I'll try to paint how I feel or whatever, convey it through a painting or a piece of art.
Yeah, nah, it's interesting in that sense too. I know like in some senses too, like some people like when they talk about like serious like issues that deal with like pain or heartbreak or love or trust and all that type of stuff too, it might like sort of comprehend in that sense too, like if people like read it like in that artist perspective, but some people they might not have like experienced it unless like they've been on their shoes and all that. So like in that sense too, like when it comes to like the addiction, so do you ever feel like that using heroin and like other drugs affected your way of creating music and art, or like would you say like it helped in that sense too, or do you feel like it made it like worse in that sense?
100%. It's like a weird duality. It impedes on my creativity a lot, I guess, because like I said in that interview, you can be a lot more focused on the drugs than your art. But at the same time, I so much of my art has been influenced by my addiction and the way I feel about it and shit. So it definitely has, there's a lot of art that has come as a byproduct of my addiction, and I appreciate that much of it, I guess. But yeah, it helps me write songs and it also ruins your life. So it's kind of both, I suppose.
Yeah, no, no doubt. No, it's it's an interesting like aspects to it in that sense too. And you've made music for a while now, with the ska band, with the various bands that you've worked with, but like were on your when you were working on like individual like music, you dropped like more singles than like full length like projects like under your stage name. So do you feel that dropping these singles is a better way to connect with your fan base than dropping an album, or are you more inclined to like dropping like a project soon?
Um, I do feel like the hyperpop slash trap type of shit, that style kind of does lend itself really well to singles and like music videos and shit like that. And that is a part of like my lack of EPs and albums. But also another part of it is that I get over anxious to share my music. Like I make a song and I get excited about it and I want to drop it immediately. And I have like little self-control, so I always just end up dropping them immediately. And which is kind of a bad habit because it's good to have songs like in the vault,
Yeah.
unreleased, like a little catalog of unreleased music. But yeah, I would love to drop a full length album someday. I just need to get better self control about keeping my music under in the vault for a little bit. And I feel like I need to improve and evolve a little bit more as an artist in order to make a full length album that I myself would be happy with. I've dropped a few EPs, like collaborating with Willow and shit like that, but never a full album. But I definitely would love to.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just a
just
matter of me feeling confident enough to do it.
yeah, nah, I definitely know what you mean too. I know like with artists, like, they're still like kind of finding like their sound in that sense too, or like their style that like what connects with them. So I know some people will try to focus on like putting on like a certain single that might be hot, or like a certain single that like might, connect with people, and then like build up to like a theme like of like that project in that sense too. So maybe in this one project it might be more about like love and trust in that sense too, and
Mhm.
another project it could be like about like heartbreak, or another one could be like socially like conscious like issues and stuff like that. So In your sense, like when if you were to like release an album, would you be able to have like a certain like theme to it, or would it be like more of an assortment in that sense?
If I'm being honest, it would probably be centered around like um addiction type subject matter, because that's what I have the most to say about right now, I guess. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just addiction has like definitely shaped who I am now and like affected me to my core, and like um I just have a lot to say about it. So I feel like, and I feel like it's important to talk about. So I think I think if I were to put out a full project right now, it would most likely be centered around that.
Yeah, no, most definitely in that sense. And you know, like when I found it, like your music, you know, like I found it like mainly on YouTube rather than like on other platforms, unless like it was like found on other platforms that maybe I didn't like notice in that sense too. But in that sense, what made you decide that, you know, YouTube was a preferred platform to release music? And if you were to do it, or if you already had done it like right now, would you ever like release it on like other platforms, you know, such as like Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Music in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. I the reason I mostly drop on SoundCloud and YouTube is because those are pretty much the two platforms that I use to listen to music myself. Like when I go to listen to music on my phone, I use YouTube or SoundCloud. I don't have Spotify on my phone or anything like that. So I guess it's kind of just as simple as that. But I do have I some of my music is on Apple Music and Spotify and iTunes and shit. It's just usually it the reason for that would be because it's featuring an artist who chose to upload it to those platforms.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, we're getting on to like more of the soft white underbelly like situation, like with the story from that sense. So how did that like come about? Like, did they ever like reach out to you, or were you like reaching out to them in that sense?
It's kind of funny. I was in LA for the very first time, and I was pretty strung out at the time and didn't know where to. I didn't have a plug basically, and I guess the place to be if you need something and don't have a plug, if you're in LA, is Skid Row. It's like a big like homeless encampment slash open air market, open air drug market type of place. So um, I was walking through Skid Row trying to find shit or whatever because I was sick, and Mark. Okay, I'm gonna back it up a little bit before I actually saw Mark. I was looking very out of place there because I was just looking very tourist, I guess, because I was riding through Skid Row on a fucking Lime scooter and like I had like my phone and I had like nice Nikes on and shit like that. So I looked very out of place, and I see Mark standing outside of what I'm assuming is his office because that's where we filmed. But he looked very clean cut and like very fit and just looked so out of place like in the crowd of the Skid Row um residents, I guess. And so we kind of noticed each other, and then he made small talk about my face tattoos. Actually, that's how we started talking, and I'm assuming that he could tell like why I was in the area because I probably looked like I was kind of like aimlessly walking around like looking for something, and he started telling me that he interviews people in the area who like look interesting or look like they have a story to tell or whatever, and asked if I maybe had a story to tell and if I wanted to do an interview. And I was kind of put on the spot, but I wasn't. He seemed really nice and genuine, so I was just like, sure, let's do the fucking interview, man. And then went in and did that, and um, he gave me $50 after, which was cool. That was really nice of him. And it's funny because I had seen his channel before on YouTube. It comes up on my recommended shit before, but I didn't make the connection when I was there that his channel is that channel. And I didn't realize he has like 6 million subscribers and shit. It's just, I don't know. It was just kind of a funny situation. It was just very, very random. It was cool though. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, nah, I mean, it's very like interesting in that sense too, because I know like he interviewed like a lot of people that either went on to have like, big careers in that sense too, with
Mhm.
Sharp, who's like now on like No Jumper,
Yeah.
Royalty, who is sort of becoming a little bit big in that sense too, even though she still might be doing her thing. And then he called out this one girl named, I think, Azariah, who was called out, I think, for scamming him for some reason. So from what I've heard, and then also this one girl that was also like on the show that would come like multiple times, and then I think she was dealing with addiction and homelessness, and then she passed away in that sense too, while
Yeah,
trying to become
Amanda, I
clean.
think her name
Yeah,
was. I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah,
It's sad too because she passed away in treatment while she had been clean for a minute.
yeah,
She was actually sober when she passed away, and or I don't want to explicitly say this because I don't know for sure, but from what I gathered, she died from um brain injuries from getting abused while she was in active addiction and being around fucked up people or whatever that would treat her like shit and abuse her. And I guess from what I gathered, she died in her sleep from some sort of brain injury that she sustained while in rehab and while trying to stay sober, which is super depressing.
yeah. No, it's kind of crazy too, because with brain injuries too, like it could be very impactful, like whether it's coerced, like in that sense too, like if you actually like provided like provocation like in the head, like that's what happened with
Mhm.
Bob Saget, like when he passed away just a while back, because I think he hit his head like on a headboard like on a bed, and then he had like internal bleeding, which led to external bleeding, and then passed away like in his sleep too. And then with the Amanda situation, it could have been something similar like that too, like even like with the abuse. So maybe like internally, like the blood like might have kind of caused like some damage like to the brain where like
Yeah, there could have
oxygen.
been
Yeah,
some like overlooked damage to her brain that they didn't notice in time that ended up catching up to her too quick. It's that's fucking sad, man.
yeah, no, and it's interesting too, like even with the comment section, like whether that they would like, keep or like, block comments. Like I know in situations where Mark interviews either like sex offenders or with people like being caught with like rape or, pimps and stuff like that, like sometimes
Mhm.
comments would be either off or, like not even like used at all. But then with like prostitutes or strippers or gang members, like it'll sort of like be open in that sense too, or homeless people. So you'll
Yeah.
have like a different like array of like reactions like in that sense.
Yeah, man, the comment section on Software Underbelly can be a shit show sometimes.
And nah, it's pretty interesting too. And then like with you, like right now too, it's been I think almost what, like 5 or 6 months since the interview like happened. So how has like life been for you since then after you did that interview?
Since then I'm back in Vermont now, and I've since gotten on or back on Suboxone, so I'm no longer using heroin. So that's cool. um Not a whole lot has drastically changed since then. The interview did bring me some traffic to my music, which was pretty cool. I didn't really expect that since I didn't like try to plug my music in the interview. People just kind of found it on their own, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
nah,
I'm doing pretty well. I'm stable on Suboxone now and not using dope and shit like that. So I
yeah,
still
yeah,
drink beer and smoke weed or whatever, but
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean, and I'm glad that you're back on track. That's you're finally getting like a clear mind, like in that sense too, like out of like the hard drugs in that sense too. So I'm proud of you like for that too. And I don't know if like Mark like reached out to you like a while back, like since that interview. Like I don't know if there's like any future plans that you guys have right now. Like I don't know if he's like donating money based out of like the GoFundMe to you, like in that sense, or is it like sort of like a little bit different right now?
No, he just paid me for the initial interview. Um, but we've sort of kept in touch a little bit. I text him sometimes. He knows that I'm back on Suboxone and shit, and I'm aiming to hopefully be in LA again next month. And if that happens, we're supposed to do a little update interview, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, nah,
So I know a lot of the people in the comments were like telling me to get back on Suboxone and wondering if I had gotten back on Suboxone. So I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that.
yeah, I think they'll be like excited to hear it, like in that sense too. And aside from like the music having like is like much like high streams, like what was like the impacts for you like after you did that interview in terms of like if you gained like any like recognition or criticism or other impacts like from the interview, like if people back home like noticed you like after you did that interview, or like people like walking around like the street like in that sense.
Um, a few people from around here, people that I know, did come across the video. I mean, I assumed that much would happen because his channel has so many subscribers. It's a big channel, but um, not as many as you would think have seen it, which is surprising. I don't try to exactly promote the video because it's I want I want to be famous for my music, not because I did a heroin interview. You know what I mean? Not to fucking simplify it as a heroin interview because it's more than that. But um, yeah, I don't exactly try to promote or flex the video. But if people find it on their own, then whatever, that's okay. Because I don't know. Like I said before, I think it's an important subject to talk about, and I think addiction gets not necessarily ignored, but people, I don't know. It has a, I guess it has a fucking stigma to it. You know what I mean? And people don't want to actually look at the situation in an unbiased manner
Yeah.
and think of how we can resolve this fucking ridiculous drug problem that we're having right now in this war on drugs and shit like that. Um, it's a lot easier to just say like, oh, fuck the junkies, rather than like actually fucking find a way to help them. You know what I mean? So I think Mark's channel and just talking about addiction and stuff is important.
Yeah. Just to add on like to your point too, like I know like in some places too, like more so like in big cities, they'll have safe injection sites. If people were to go like use like a certain drug, or like they'll have like testing kits to test out
Mhm.
if there's like other like content involved too. So I do feel like one other thing, to kind of like, mitigate like, drug issues, like not like, like stop it like completely, but to mitigate it like in a sense where people don't OD, from an overdose or from other
Mhm.
stuff. Like with safe injection sites, like they'll have it like probably like almost like in every like big city, they'll have like someone that'll come watch you like use the certain product, and they'll find out if the needle is like clean, or if the equipment like used or like like more cleanly, like in that sense too, like even like the drugs too. And then they'll also provide like drug kits that will actually like verify like whether there's like other content that's like used, like for example, like with marijuana, sometimes it could be like laced with like cocaine,
Mhm.
or laced with like fentanyl too. So I do feel like having like something like that too could like prevent people from like relapsing, or people like from ODing in that sense too. So just kind of like
100%, bro. I am all about that shit. I'm all about like as much harm reduction as we possibly can. Um, I I think safe injection sites are fucking 100% logical. It's way better than letting some homeless person die like in an abandoned building by themselves or something. And it's not, I don't think it's encouraging people to go shoot up, which is a lot of people's counter argument. And I don't know. I think we're approaching this like I just think we're approaching this war on drugs shit very wrong. And stuff like what you were just talking about is, I think, is great. And I think there should be way fucking more of that. That's like exactly the right approach. Honestly, in my opinion, I think they should legalize all drugs, or so there could be a clean, consistent supply, because all these bans on opiates and shit is it's made safe pharmaceutical opiates, or like poppy based opiates, so fucking scarce that fentanyl is now a gigantic thing. And opiates have, I mean, not opiates, opiate overdoses have increased like fucking more than tenfold in the past 10 years because of this shit. And it's just, I don't know, obviously something is not working. I think you're never going to stop people from doing drugs. People are always going to do drugs. People are always going to find a way to do drugs. I think it's about supplying them with drugs that aren't dirty and sketchy and like mystery fentanyl powder. You know what I mean? If drug addicts, like if somebody who was on pain management and got cut off of their pills and then experienced withdrawal for the first time and then turned to fucking weird random mystery fentanyl shit and then dies from that when they could have just been on their pain medication. I don't know. I think that people need access to clean drugs in order to reduce the fucking ridiculous amount of overdoses and deaths that we're having recently.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean too. I don't know about like Vermont's drug policy like right now, like with the state, like if they have like implemented like safe injection sites, or like like testing
Not yet.
kits.
There's a lot of talk about it here, but there's not any actual safe injection sites here yet.
True.
There's a lot of harm reduction programs like needle exchanges that hand out free Narcan and clean syringes and stuff like that. But I haven't seen or actually heard of a set in stone safe injection site here, but I know there's lots of talks of it.
Yeah, because I think right now, I don't know if like the Biden administration is having like plans on like changing like the whole like idea of drug use and all that. Like if there is like these sites or these like testing kits that are gonna come like right now. But I know like with Canada, like right now where I'm from, like they're kind of like very like lenient on having these sites and programs. So hopefully like in the states too, like under like Biden's like administration, it could be like implemented like federally, like in that sense too.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of steps in the right direction lately, like Oregon decriminalizing drugs and prioritizing treatment over like, jail time or just being punitive in general to them. And yeah, there is progress being made lately, which is cool and gives me hope. But just something more needs to happen because too many people are dying and it's fucking unbelievable. It's unreal.
Yeah, no doubt. I just have these couple of questions left too, but NFTs, like they're big, popular, kind of like sort of like a big thing, like with investments, like right now, when people are getting into the whole idea of like buying like art, like from an artist and all that, like whether
Mhm.
it's creative art, whether it's music, etc. So in your opinion, based on your experience in like creating music and creating art, what are your like thoughts on it? And would you ever be interested in, creating like NFTs of your like art someday, whether it's like, vault like music from the vaults, or like art pieces that have like this very like high like sentimental like value in that sense?
Um, I I'm too undereducated on the subject of NFTs to have that much of an opinion, but I do think it's interesting because I sort of got into crypto trading a little bit recently. I'm not like a fucking crypto bro now, but like I'm like trying to learn about it a little bit, because it seems like it actually could be a good way to make money. But yeah, it would be cool to be able to make an NFT and sell it for like fucking 10 grand or something. But I just am too undereducated on this subject to have like
Yeah.
a set in stone opinion, or to say I'm going to make an NFT.
Yeah, no doubt. I truly understand too. And for this last question, so what's next for you, like in terms of like music, other content, and so forth? And this is like more of like a double-sided question too. So if you ever tend to like meet up with a person, whether like they're like an addict or someone who is going for the transition of getting into like certain stuff too. I know like one of the other questions like is on like a later aspect too, but like what sorry, uh what advice would you give them, like that they could learn from, like in that sense too, like based off like your experience in that sense?
Hmm. For the what's in the future for the music aspect of the question, this year I really want to work on trying to set up a little mini tour in Los Angeles. And I also would really want to work on more solo music. I have a big percentage of my music is features and featuring other artists, because it can be hard for me to write a song sometimes unless I have another artist to kind of bounce off of and exchange ideas with. So that's something I want to work on, and I want to put out more solo music, and possibly like an album like we were talking about earlier. And also kind of want to try some new side projects and do some shit that maybe doesn't fit the Lil Britney mold or whatever. Maybe like a grindcore project or whatever. So yeah, I guess that's the plans for music this year. And for part B of the question, things I would say to other musicians trying to make it, or addicts who are trying to get clean or are just getting used to getting clean. For music, I would say shamelessly being yourself is really important, and not trying to emulate another artist or scene, or trying to fit yourself into a certain pre-established mold. It's really important to stand out and be weird and be yourself. And yeah, I guess that would be my advice to musicians. And to addicts who are in a similar position as me, like getting used to being clean, or trying to get clean. I guess I would say what matters is that you are genuinely trying to get clean, and trying as hard as you can, or just putting in as much effort as you can at the moment, even if it's not exactly working. Yeah, and because I know that there's a lot of guilt that comes with addiction and trying to get clean and relapsing or whatever, and that can kind of change your attitude to make you feel like whatever, it doesn't matter, like I'm destined to fucking do this or whatever. But all that matters is that you're trying, and you keep trying. Just keep trying as hard as you can.
Yeah,
That's, I guess that's all. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
yeah. I think like I definitely like do agree too. And like this could be like the same for musicians like trying to like make it out, keep trying, to make it to like a certain position that you want to be to, like whether you'd want to be like the top songwriter in the world, or if you want to perform at like Radio City, like music hall and all that. It's all about like trying and persist, and
Exactly,
persisting.
man.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't happen overnight.
yeah, yeah,
It doesn't happen overnight. I've been trying to do this shit for a few years now.
yeah.
That's,
And
yeah, that's facts, bro. It doesn't. Yeah.
Most definitely. And I think, like it's like a very like important advice, for everyone, like I think, just to end it off like right here, just to keep trying, like no matter what you're doing, like whether it's getting clean, whether it's applying for a job like countless times, whether it's, making it like in music or making it like in, business and stuff like that, it's just, waking up in the morning, whether you're praying to God or whether you're have like a set plan, it's all about like trying like what you're gonna do, like creating like new stuff. And I think this is like kind of like a nice way to end it out too, like just keep trying. So
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to end on.
yeah.